Well, hello and happy 4th of July, 250th anniversary of the United States. Hello, power partners. This is our informational play yard. It is Starstyle. Be the Star You Are, brought to you on the airways under the auspices of Be the Star You Are charity. We're coming to you on Voice America Media, and I am your host, Cynthia Brian. Yes, in today's show, we are going to talk a little bit about the history of America. In 1776, our independent nation was established as a great experiment, the United States of America. The Declaration of Independence was signed as this new country renounced kings, and Thomas Jefferson asserted that all people possess unalienable rights, including life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And we are going to dive into that in segment two. Is your garden cloaked in red, white, and blue to honor our anniversary, our 250th, the semi-centennial, however we say that, of our nation? This summer season is essentially speaks to us of parades and flowers and fireworks and deck lounging and hammock swinging and sleepovers and swim meets and barbecues, beaches, celebrations, camping, and concerts. And we will travel and we're going to talk about how we can eat fresh from the garden. So join me, the garden goddess, here on Star Style Be the Star You Are, and as I'm going to walk you through the July garden. The miracle moment for today brought to you by Starstyle Productions. Check out the books at Starstyle Productions at cynthiabrian.com. Go to the Starstyle store, click on top, and you can find 12 different books that can inspire and motivate you as well as help you in your garden and help you enjoy life a bit more. So these are a couple of the quotes that I wanted to give you for today. This one is from Harry S. Truman. America was not built on fear. America was built on courage, imagination, and an unbeatable determination to do the job at hand. And Benjamin Franklin said, "Where liberty dwells, there is my country." Well, the preamble to the Declaration of Independence has been described by the historian Walter Isaacson, who is just quite an amazing writer and historian, as the greatest sentence ever written. The quote is, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." Now, this didn't come easy. It's so easy to say, happy 4th of July, or to think about the fireworks, or to think that maybe establishing a new nation was an easy thing. But what we have to remember is that these men, many of whom were actually born in England, or they were still British citizens, had decided that they had had it with the king. And the American Revolution officially began on April 19th, 1775, with the battles of Lexington and Concord in Massachusetts. And this initial armed conflict, it's often referred to as the shot heard around the world. It marked the outbreak of the Revolutionary War between the 13 colonies and Great Britain. Now, the 13 colonies were not united in any way at that time. They were 13 separate colonies. They had different ways of doing things. But the one thing they did have in common was that they were being taxed, basically taxation without representation in Great Britain, and so much of their wealth was going to the British. So while the physical war started in 1775, the broader political and ideological revolution developed over more than a decade before that. So I'm going to give you a bit of a timeline that breaks down some major milestones of this period. And I also want to suggest to you I think that these are two really incredible shows. One is The American Revolution, that is on PBS. Of course, it's really, really, really well done. And I think that you will enjoy it a lot. Get a lot of historical information. And the other one is on Netflix, and it's called The American Experiment. It is a documentary. Again, a very, very informative. I wish they had these things when I was in school. I was a history major. I loved learning all about history, but it would have been more fun to actually see these kinds of documentaries. All right, so here is a timeline that's going to give you a few of the major milestones. 1765 to 1774, there were so many rising tensions that were fueled by that British taxation I was just talking about, taxation without representation. There was the Stamp Act, and there were the punitive measures like the Intolerable Acts. And then April 19th, 1775 was the Battle of Lexington and Concord. And that is the official ignition of the war. And, if you, I don't know if you get Smithsonian Magazine, it is a wonderful magazine. And in the April-May issue, they actually did a fantastic article about celebrating America at 250, about the taverns, the public houses, and the inns that served as unofficial headquarters for the American rebels. I mean, some are a few are still standing, and they talk about them, but they have this Paul Revere. They have a statement from Paul Revere, who said that they held their meetings at the Green Tavern, careful that the meetings should be kept secret because the soon-to-be founding fathers and other patriots like Paul Revere, they found great value in the American public house. It was a place to trade stories, to learn of critical world events, and to strategize, and they rallied against the British tyranny. They plotted their protests against loathsome policy, and they read aloud from Thomas Paine's Common Sense or from the Declaration of Independence while they were sipping their toddies and their drinks. Now, it was the Second Continental Congress that formally adopted the Declaration of Independence on July 4th, 1776, and that transformed the colonial rebellion into an actual official fight to establish a sovereign nation. So many people think that we got our freedom on July 4th, 1776, but that really, we were still in the midst of the rebellion, and the American Revolution was going on. So at these taverns, militias recruited soldiers. They held military tribunals. They had stored a lot of their military supplies. They stored their rations, and they hosted the patriot groups like Sons of Liberty. And most of the taverners supported these gatherings at their establishments because they were feeling really crushing British tariffs on all the raw ingredients for their spirits. And something that I found interesting, even on tariffs on playing cards. So the revolution actually became a real boon for business. Now, the revolution went on. It officially concluded with the signing of the Treaty of Paris on September 3rd, 1783, in which Great Britain formally recognized the independence of the United States. But the American Revolution as a political movement with the 13 colonies actually didn't end until 1789. So now, what are we also commemorating? The 4th of July and independence. So we are marking the colony's formal break from Great Britain. And while Congress voted for independence on July 2nd, the 4th was actually celebrated as the day because that was the day that the final document was approved. The conflict, there was so much tension over that British taxation that, of course, we had to have a rebellion. And the Declaration of Independence was primarily written by Thomas Jefferson. The document justified the separation by listing 27 colonial grievances against King George III and proclaimed the rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, there were some early celebrations. The first celebrations occurred immediately, and I love it. It involved a mock funeral for King George III. There were bonfires and there were fireworks. And that began the tradition of fireworks, starting in Philadelphia. Now, as an aside, I have to tell you something funny because being the history major, always loving history, I had three roosters when I was a little girl. I had 12 chickens, three became roosters, the other nine were hens. And so I named them different things. And one, the meanest one who would always run around pecking me in my booty. I named him King George III because I detested him and I wanted him out. Well, he finally did end up in a pot of soup. And I know they say old chickens make good soup, but he was not a good guy. And so that was my connection with George III. Now, it was the 4th of July became a widespread celebration after the War of 1812, actually, and then it was recognized in 1870, but it didn't become a paid federal holiday until 1938. So, all of you who work for companies, I know this year, 4th of July is on a Saturday, but it is a paid holiday. Now, there are a few fun facts. The actual voting, technically, the colonies again declared the independence on July 2nd, 76, and the most delegates signed the final document not until August 2nd, 1776, not July 4th. So it was Thomas Jefferson on July 4th. And I think that one of the most strangest coincidences about July 4th that I've read about is that both John Adams and Thomas Jefferson, who were both key figures in the Declaration of Independence and became future presidents, they died on the same day, July 4th, 1826, exactly 50 years after the adoption of the Declaration of Independence. Now, something about Jefferson and actually Washington too, but Jefferson enslaved more than 610 people over the course of his life, and many of the other founding fathers did likewise. And in 1776, there were more than 400,000 African Americans who were living in slavery. And even though it was supposed to be, that all men are created equal, it didn't include slaves and it didn't include women. They could not vote and typically couldn't own property. So, also, the Declaration makes reference to the merciless Indian savages, and the young republic removed Native Americans from their lands. And we know the repercussions of that have happened. So now the semi-quincentennial, it's also called the sesquicentennial. That means 2.5 centuries. It's also good to call it a quarter millennium. I think that might be easier. There are a lot of festivities all around the United States happening right now. And I know in our little area, we have parades and barbecues and fireworks. And so it is a day of observance of the July 4th. And at the same time, it is a little bit special. In San Francisco, which is not too far away, they're featuring the 250th anniversary spectacular. And for only the third time in its 90-year history, fireworks are going to be launched directly from the Golden Gate Bridge. It's free and it's synchronized and it's going to be at 9:30 p.m. Pacific. So it will be San Francisco's sole public fireworks show. So if you are in the San Francisco Bay Area and you really want to see a really spectacular show, check out the Golden Gate Bridge. Well, that's just a little bit of history and fun stuff to know about our 250th anniversary and the 4th of July. So I hope that you are celebrating, and we definitely don't want anybody like King George III again. You're listening to Cynthia Brian. This is Starstyle, Be the Star You Are. We'll be back with a business bite, and then we're going to go into the garden because the July garden is offering all kinds of wonderful fruits and vegetables. Don't go away. How do you build and maintain long-term client relationships that will get you referrals? You can try a few of these suggestions. You have to be upfront because honesty is always the best policy. Even though people had bad news or have bad news, it's always best to tell the truth if you have a problem that arises. You got to listen with both ears. You're going to strengthen your relationship by really listening. Talk less, listen more. Yeah, we have two ears, one mouth. Do say what you say you will do. In other words, live with integrity, show up, follow through. Always put your client or customer first. Make every person feel like he or she is the most important person in the world to you. And that means paying close attention and not multitasking when in conversation. And remember something really important. Gratitude works. Be grateful and say so. The more gratitude you show, the more you'll have to be thankful for. Analyze your client's needs, don't sell them, offer benefits they can use, and you'll build relationships that are enthusiastic about your services. You are the star of your own performance. Turn your passions into profits. I'm Cynthia Brian with another Business Bite from Starstyle. For more information, visit cynthiabrian.com. That's Brian with an I, cynthiabrian.com. A quote from Henry James, summer afternoon, summer afternoon. To me, those have always been the two most beautiful words in the English language. Well, what do you think? I agree. It's summer and it is really wonderful to have a summer afternoon, especially if it's not too hot. Well, this is our second segment on Star Style, Be the Star You Are, coming to you on Voice America Media, and I am your host, Cynthia Brian. We were just talking about the 250th birthday of our nation, and many gardens are definitely cloaked in, I like to call it red, white, and bloom. A top garden design trend this year is patio culture. And with this semi-quincentennial front of mind, I call it also Star-Spangled Living. Most Americans do love being outdoors. We are kind of an outdoor tribe, and summertime is our sandbox. Whether you have a patio that's in the front, in the back, a side yard, it is an extension of our living spaces. It's a place where we can relax, entertain, and play. I have always found that gardens are my sanctuary. It's where I can connect with myself, with my family, friends, and with neighbors. I love water features, fragrance, and pots filled with pops of color because I find that color adds interest, it adds intrigue, and it's important to invite the pollinators and our feathered friends to celebrate summer with us. Now, many people do plant vegetables in raised beds, which are great, but I like some containers of thyme and basil, chives, even tomatoes and squash planted in containers or pots on the patio to make it easy to snip culinary explorations that are so close to my kitchen. Because if I have to go up to my vegetable garden, I have to walk a ways and go upstairs and then go through a gate. And, it's kind of a little bit of a trek. So this summer season, sensually speaks to us of flags and flowers and fireworks and barbecues and all kinds of celebrations, concerts, and especially, as I said in the top of the hour, eating fresh, 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 direct from the garden. As a gardener, I put in a lot of time to grow my tomatoes and zucchini and greens and cucumbers and beans and other vegetables. And maybe you do the same. I like to grow only what we're going to eat and only really what we like. I know when I first started doing vegetable gardens, I wanted to plant a little of everything. But the problem with that is that you don't eat it all, and then there's always so much. I don't want to say waste because the birds and the rabbits and the deer they always eat, and there's always stuff to give to friends and neighbors. But I find it just so much better and more economical to only grow what I know what we like and what we're going to eat. But when to harvest to have it be the most delicious and nutritious can sometimes be, difficult to know. So let me give you these tips for your own homegrown food and when you want to harvest it. So tomatoes. Most tomatoes need to be soft, kind of soft and fully colored, although there are some exceptions. Like big, large heirlooms tend to crack, so you want to harvest them early, and then they can continue ripen. Like you just put them on a plate in your kitchen. Don't leave cherry tomatoes on the vine too long either. I am growing my tomatoes in mixed flower beds as well as containers, and it's really been successful. I've already picked a few tomatoes, and they were delicious. But once picked, tomatoes are best plated on your countertop. If you put them in the refrigerator, it's going to reduce their flavor. So don't do that. Now, my favorite snack is to pick a few cherry tomatoes, grab a handful of chives, snip several basil leaves, and just munch them while I'm in the garden. I mean, that to me, that's like the height of happiness. If I had a glass of wine with that, that would even be better. But usually when I'm gardening, that's not there. If you're growing kale and chard, these are really flavorful greens and they're best harvested as young leaves. I grow Swiss chard and kale all year round and I add it to salads, omelets, soups. One thing you need to know is seeds are produced after 2 years, and then those will allow for you to grow more plants. Summer squash. Now, this year I'm growing crooked-necked yellow squash in a container on my patio so I can harvest it at the baby stage with the flowers still attached. The smaller the squash or zucchini, the more tender they will be. So when you see these great big gigantic squash, they're going to be kind of, they won't have as much flavor and they'll be tough and stringy. Eggplant. Size and color are not necessarily an indication of maturity. What you're looking for is a glossy, smooth skin, and that's the best time to harvest it. But don't pull it from the plant. Cut it with a sharp knife. Now, if the skin is dull and tough, the flesh is going to be bitter. Beans. Harvest beans every few days to keep the plants producing. Pick the beans when they're long, crisp, and slender. That's when they're the tastiest. Now, once you can see clumps in the pods, the beans it will be tough and stringy, and you could use those the seeds, or the pods in there to plant more beans for next year. And then when you're done with the plant, just dig it into your soil because beans add a lot of nitrogen. Beets. When beets are ready to be pulled, the tops will protrude from the ground. And if they're left in the ground too long, the texture is going to suffer. So the leaves are edible, and I like them a lot. They kind of taste a little bit like Swiss chard, and they can be harvested even while the beets are still growing, but do it sparingly. When it comes to peppers, if you pick them green, the plant is going to continue to set fruit. However, the most flavorful peppers are when the plant is either the colors are red, yellow, purple, or orange. So with peppers, you want to watch them daily because once they're mature, there's rapid deterioration on the plant. I do think the two most beautiful words in the English language are a summer afternoon with vegetables, flowers, and fruits in your garden and on your patio. Now, I have my Goddess Gardener guide for July, so I want to give that to you before we end the show today because these are things to do in your garden. Water lawns and flower beds deeply to encourage strong root growth. Succession planting is the key to a plentiful supply of summer greens, and that includes lettuces, arugula, beets, carrots, and radishes. So sow your favorite seeds every 3 weeks. So as you consume something, just keep sowing more seeds and you'll get more. Now you can celebrate the semi-quincentennial by planting a patriotic plot of red, white, and blue. I make my own potting mix by combining equal parts of compost, good soil, and sand, and then add leaf mold plus small amount of liquid fertilizer. And this is a really good potting mix. Bring butterflies to your landscape with lantana, butterfly bush, and sunflowers. Now, butterflies have sensory receptors on their feet, and that helps them land on their tasty treats rapidly. You can add warmth to your borders with brightly colored petunias and pelargoniums. Prevent fires, and we're in fire country, by removing debris, dead branches, and refuse from around your home and yard. Here in California, we have to have a 0 to 5 feet zone, which means no debris in there and preferably some gravel. It makes it kind of hard. Cut back leggy perennials and deadhead roses because when the blooms wither, then it'll make more your flowers come back. Now, if you want to save rose petals, you can make rose water, just putting the rose petals and soaking them in the rose water and then straining them out, and you get a nice rose water to put on your skin. Season your summer with organic fruits, herbs, and vegetables from your garden, or you can go to the farmer's market because there are good reasons to do this. It's for your health, the health of the planet, and really for heightened environmental awareness. Plant a container of fruits and vegetables. I mean, seed companies have developed plants that are compact in size. They yield more, they taste great, and they feature unique colors and shapes. And it just makes it so easy if you just have a balcony or a porch or sometimes even a windowsill. Now, as when it comes to containers, though, you got to check them daily because they dry out quickly in summer. And then watch for yellowing leaves, spots, wilting, or mildew. Those can all be signs of disease. You might need to spray with a fungicide. And then harvest your vegetables, as I said earlier, as they ripen, and then that will encourage more production. So happy gardening, happy growing, and happy summer. And that is our show for today. I hope that you will stay tuned to Starstyle, Be the Star You Are, with me, Cynthia Brian, every week right here for some fun and success. You can change your life, you can make your dreams come true, and you can eat fresh from your garden. For more information about Starstyle Productions, to buy any of my books, and please do, it would help keep the show on the air. Visit my website at cynthiabrian.com. And, if you like these shows, again, you hear it all the time about independent media. This is what this is as well. You can subscribe. I do have a Substack that is Star Style Empowerment, and you can subscribe at cynthiabrian.substack.com. To make a donation or get involved with Be the Star You Are charity, visit bethestarur.org. My aim is always to encourage, amuse, inspire, inform, and motivate you. I want you to see beyond your physical being. Know you already are the star you dreamed of becoming. Cherish the past, dream of the future, and celebrate every moment of your life. And until next week, when we're back here in the barnyard, and by the way, all my animals are doing great. Remember that love always wins, kindness always prevails, and smiles will keep us happy. I am Cynthia Brian for Star Style. I thank you and encourage you to be kind, be inclusive, live with integrity, embrace cultures, love unconditionally, encourage others, be generous, read, lead, succeed, communicate, collaborate, innovate, and most of all, be your unapologetically authentic self because everyone counts. Go out into the world and be the star you are. Have a very safe 4th of July. And remember the reason that our founders broke away from Great Britain. America wants a democracy. Happy 250th anniversary of independence, and we do not want a king. Be well.